So just before we kick off, I just want to, I suppose, remind all of us to look after ourselves, to look after yourself during this webinar. We're going to post some details in the chat here, but if you do find any of the content triggering, we're really encouraging you to reach out, whether it's to Mind's info line, and the details in the chat, or the Samaritans, or you might want to visit our website where there's a lot of information about who to contact or any support. And also, if you do find anything triggering, please do feel free to leave the webinar or take a break at any point. Please do look after your own well-being. So, going on to what we hope you're going to achieve with the webinar. So, we've got lots to cover in an hour, but just to outline a few of those learning outcomes, we really hope that by the end of this webinar, you'll have an increased awareness of the support that is available to you and the people around you around mental health. Also, you have improved knowledge of where to signpost people to mental health support during this cost of living situation. We also aim that you have access to resources and information about mental health and money to share with your workplaces, with your teams. And also you'll have an increased knowledge of how that support is available, can help your workplaces or help those teams around you. In terms of what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be looking at that link between money and mental health. So we're also going to be looking at what resources are available for the workplace, and Beckett will be taking us through that. We're also going to get an insight from CIMSPA. So that's the recording that we have about how they've supported their organisation and a bit of insight about the industry. We're also then going to hear from Emma about how we can spot the signs that somebody may be struggling, how we support, and how we then signpost. And then hopefully, as I say, we'll have some time for a Q&A. So what is this link between money and mental health? Well, we know that we are facing pretty much the biggest cost of living crisis in a generation. And for the sport and physical activity sector, you're going to be facing increased energy costs, increased travel costs, staff fees, at the same time that things like gym memberships, subscriptions may be falling. And since, if we think about back to last year, a third of people have felt less able to afford those activities beneficial to their mental well-being. And so many of your staff, many of your volunteers, members, coaches, athletes, the community that you work with will have been impacted negatively. So what is that link? Well, we do know that poor mental health can really make earning and managing money harder. We know that worrying about money can make our mental health worse. So it can start to feel like a bit of a vicious cycle. So when you're supporting your people, I think it's really helpful to understand or to know how mental health and money are connected, just so that you can get an understanding of how it may be impacting on them or even impacting on yourself. So just some of the few key things to be aware of is that, if you or someone in your team is feeling low or depressed, you may lack that motivation to manage your finance. It might not even feel worth trying. It may be that you avoid doing things such as opening bills, whether that comes through the post or through your email. You may just avoid looking at, you may avoid checking your bank account. And that avoidance can mean that sometimes actually you don't know what your situation is, which makes the worry worse. Or you may then receive bills that actually create anxiety and panic. We also know, this was the other way, is that spending money can sometimes give us a bit of a brief high. So we may overspend to feel better if we're feeling low or feeling anxious, but this can then lead us to having less money and then impact our mental health yet more. And if someone is experiencing something such as mania or hypomania, then that can actually make us make impulsive financial decisions. And then the impact of that can obviously again impact on our mental well-being. Worrying about money again can lead to sleep problems. You may notice people that you work with are more tired or irritable than usual, and that could be because they're worrying about money. It could be they're worrying about something else, but again, it has that vicious cycle. Some of the people you work with or yourselves may not be able to afford the things that we normally have. You know, it could be housing, it could be the food that you normally eat, the heating, medication, actually seeking talking therapists. So, you know, someone may have to sofa surf, or they might not be eating enough food. So there's lots of things that can impact on our well-being, and our well-being can impact on the money. And I think often we may feel ashamed that we need support around money, and we may feel under a lot of pressure to support ourselves, which can make us feel tired, but also not seek help, which is why when we talk to Emma later, it'd be really helpful to understand what are the signs to look out for. How do I approach that person to ask them what support they might need? So I'm not going to go into a lot more detail about that, but on our website, there's information about this link between money and mental health. And as I say, it can be pretty much a vicious cycle. So we're now going to chat to Beckett from the Mental Health at Work website. And Beckett's going to talk to us about what resources are available for the workplace. I'm going to hand over now to Beckett.
Hello there, hopefully you can see me all okay. My name is Beckett and I'm the Senior Content Officer for Mental Health at Work. I'm going to have to do a sort of call back to Chris Whitty now and say, next slide, please. All right, so sadly, research shows that 58% of people have experienced poor mental health where they're currently working. And last year, the cost of that poor mental health at work cost UK employers £56 billion. So it's very clear something needs to change, and you're all here too. So I assume you agree, you want to do something about that. So the Mental Health at Work programme is curated by Mind, and it exists to ensure all employers and employees, regardless of their background, role, what sector they work in, the size of their business, they all have access to mental health support so they can thrive. Now, we know that the amount of information about mental health out there can be completely overwhelming. It's all scattered about. You might not know if it's any good or if it's out of date. So our website works to bring all the best ones we've found into one place. So you can search for exactly what you want and maybe discover some cool things you didn't even know you wanted. And we recognise that everyone's experience is different. So we're trying to shed light on these struggles, and the website seeks to normalise mental health, normalise talking about it. And we want to support organisations of any size in making a positive change. So next slide, please. This is like a little map of our site. So it consists of 3 main areas. Now, the commitment, I'm going to talk a bit more about that later, but it's a free pledge you can take. And that's to let your employees and the rest of the world know that you're taking mental wellbeing of your staff seriously. And it was based on a really big report, which was co-written by our former CEO, Paul Farmer. And it's really dug into what makes a good mentally healthy workplace. Like I say, I'm going to talk more about that later, so we'll leave that here. You can see at the bottom there, we've got online engagement and support products, and that's just our fancy way of saying the extra things that we've got coming out very soon to help you achieve the commitment standards. So some of these are already about to be in place, such as our peer platform. It's currently being piloted. It's really cool. I'm really excited for it. It allows you as an organisation to be matched to a similar organisation as you, and you can share your journey with them, learn from each other. You'll be in similar industries, so you know the information is really relevant for you. That's going to be launched next month. Cannot wait. We've also got some extra exciting things coming out in the next 3 to 9 months, so watch this space. That'll all be really cool. And the last one there on the right, the website. Now, that's my baby, and in my opinion, it's our crown jewel. That's where we bring together all the resources that you need. It's free to use. It's had over 1.2 million visitors, and it's really going to help you implement that mental health at work commitment, let you find all the resources, all the best hints and tips from around the internet, from experts, from people with lived experience, everything you need. And a key point is it's for anyone at work. So that includes line managers, HR department, the big bosses, but it's also really useful for the employees themselves to find that support that can help them. And we also know that the sport and recreation industry does hire a lot of freelancers or self-employed people. That might be people running classes, personal trainers, that kind of thing. And so we have some really, really great guides on supporting small business owners, self-employed, and you might want to share those resources with them. I'll be giving you a little tour of the site in a moment, so hold on tight for that. Next slide, please. Right, in particular, I know today we have money on the mind. We've talked a lot about personal finances on our site because we know it's critical. Money worries can have a huge impact on your mental health. Financial stress can lead to sleepless nights, which impacts your mental well-being. It directly causes anxiety, and that can lead to an inability to fully be able to focus on your work. And that can cause a vicious cycle, as Karen showed earlier. And the cost of living crisis is obviously making this so much worse, so much more critical. So this, I thought, would be a really great chance for me to show you the site and how we break things down into little buckets of information where you can find things. So I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me. Hopefully this works. All right. I'm hoping you can now see our website. This is the homepage when you first arrive. So we're going to scroll down. And this is our tool to help you sort through our resources. You can see here, there are 523 resources that are currently available. So I'm going to take an example. Let's imagine that you are the manager of a leisure centre that has a pool and a gym. And you're not exactly sure what you want. So we're going to click on support for line managers, colleagues and staff, because that seems like a good place to start. Now you see here, the number of resources went down dramatically when we pressed that. Now that's a good thing, because that's showing that it's narrowing down what's available, what's going to be really relevant for you. It's taking out all the things that are only relevant to the NHS, for instance. It's taking out all the things that are only relevant to the police, to teachers. It's cutting it down. Now, searching sectors, let's type in sport, leisure, sport and tourism. That seems about right. There's obviously going to be ones for councils as well if they're here. Now, imagine if we're thinking about our theoretical leisure centre. Some of your staff are going to be working in the pool area, some of them are going to be in the gym, some of them might be in the office. So I don't really know what to answer here, so I'm just going to skip it. And that just means it won't narrow it down at all. You'll see the number of resources stays the same. And as we mentioned before, you're going to be the boss. So we're going to press CEO, cutting it down again. And it's going to be small. We've got maybe 50 people. So we'll tick here. And lastly, view resources. Now, these ones are obviously going to be quite general because of what we selected, but they are going to be ones that are relevant for your situation. So the very first thing that comes up here is a toolkit about starting the conversation at work. So that's going to be something that's going to help you to start breaking those barriers down, talking about it, ending the stigma about mental health in the workplace. So here you go, we've got wellbeing at work fact sheet from the CIPD, personal resilience, all of these different things you can work with. And the best thing about this, in my opinion, is if you just copy that URL, you can send that to anybody and it will come up with these search results. So if you want to send it to a colleague, if there's somebody you know who's struggling, you can cut it down to just the resources that they might find helpful and send that straight to them. So that's our search thing. Now, it might be the case that you kind of got a bit of a better idea of what you're looking for. So for instance, here, I've searched for Nuffield because I know that's an organisation within your industry that we have some resources from. And here you can see the two resources that Nuffield have given us, which is, I think this is a fantastic resource, how to spot the signs of a potential mental health issue. So if you just click on that resource, you've got some information about it. Click on view resource here. And this takes you to Nuffield's PDF they've written. That's a really handy little guide to spotting when somebody might need some additional help. So that's our resources. We also have toolkits. So if you click on toolkits here, you'll be taken to our toolkit page. Now, a toolkit, all it is we've grouped those resources together ourselves, hopefully in a way that makes sense. So you might have a toolkit about anxiety. You might have a toolkit about the sports sector. In fact, let's see if we've got a sports one, shall we? So you can use this to type sport. Here we go. Mental health in the sport and physical activity sector. So we'll open that up. And that's written there by the Sport and Recreation Alliance. So what they've done is they've told us what the issues are facing their industry and shared some of the best resources available there that are going to help you. And now when it comes to talking about the cost of living crisis, we've obviously gathered together a couple of toolkits about that. So here we worked with the charity Blurt, who talk about depression, and they've got some excellent tips and advice on coping. And again, shared some of the best resources they've got there. And the last thing to really share about the website, we do try to react to things happening in the news. We have a blog section. Now, in this area, we talk about current affairs. We also try and draw attention to things which can affect any workplace. So some key ones here, you can see how good sleep can support your mental well-being, being authentically me at work, me talking there about the spring budget, ADHD. We talk about a lot of things that could affect any workplace. We also do special events. So you can see here, this was our Pride LGBTQI plus History Month. We've got some excellent resources about things which will impact any workplace. So that is a little whistle-stop tour of our site. I really hope that you're keen to take a look and take a glance through what we have available. Don't look at it now, that'd be a bit rude, but Sam is going to put the link in the chat for you so you can take a look at the end of the talk. I'm going to try and stop sharing my screen now and see how that works. All right, so I'm going to talk now just a little bit about the commitment I touched on earlier. I know that was a lot to take in, but this is the last slide, so I'll be gone soon, I promise. So I mentioned before how it was based on the absolutely huge report, Thriving at Work. We've broken it down into 6 simple areas for you to consider, just to help you really compartmentalize the different areas you need to focus on. So once you sign the commitment, which is completely free, you're showing everyone you take mental health at work seriously. You can use our logo. We'll put your logo on our site so everyone knows that you've signed up. And you can obviously use the mental health at work website that I've just shown you to give you some starting points where to begin. And when you've signed up, you'll have access to that excellent peer platform that I mentioned that's going to be able to connect you to other people who are learning, growing together, being able to share the proper tips. And you're going to know that their advice really works because it's not just me telling you what to do, it's other people in your industry with the same challenges and experiences and really relevant information. So they're going to be able to help you work towards getting all these commitment areas ticked off and knowing that you're really doing the best you can for your employees. So thank you very much. I really hope that you're keen to check out the website, and do feel free to drop us an email with any thoughts, suggestions, heckles. Also, if you have any resources that you've created yourself that you think other people will benefit from, we would absolutely love to share those on our site. So please do get in touch. And I'm going to hand back to Karen now.
Oh, unmute myself. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Beckett. That's just, I think it's just got a whole host of information on that. It's fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing. And as Beckett said, the links in the chat, and we'll also send links out with information after the webinar. So unfortunately, Ben from CINSPA, as I mentioned, was unable to join us today. So we met up last week to record our discussion around the challenges that the workforce in the sport and physical activity sector face with their mental health during this cost of living crisis. And Ben also spoke to me about how CINSPA have supported their people. So we're just going to share that film with you. So hello, Ben. Thank you so much for being part of our webinar and recording this film with us. So your role is Regional Partnerships Manager and Wellbeing Lead with CINSPA. So with, I guess, that in mind, how has the cost of living crisis impacted on your members' mental health? So what have you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me along, and apologies I'm not there kind of live and it's recorded, but we've noticed quite a lot, obviously. So as part of my role as a regional manager and a partnerships manager, we're constantly talking to employers, organisations across the sport and physical activity sector. And, you know, it's been particularly difficult, obviously, over the last few months. And what we've tried to do is really reach out to our partners and our members as much as possible to kind of say, okay, how is this crisis impacting your mental health? How is it impacting your business? Because, you know, impact on the business then means questions around your job, around, you know, progression, around the future, and that always comes with that element of mental health, as you know. So we did a survey, so I thought it useful just to describe a little bit of the findings that we had, particularly around the energy costs. A lot of our partners and a lot of our members work in kind of leisure facilities or swimming pools, and as you can imagine, swimming pools in particular have taken it costs a lot of money to run a swimming pool, put it that way. So, you know, and 82% of the respondents of the survey that we put out in collaboration with the STA, so the Swimming Teachers Association, said 82% said that their work or their business had been impacted by the high energy costs. And 36 of all respondents said that this increase over the last 12 months has been more than 50%, and some recording up to 400% increase. So the impact on the business is huge. So what we have seen across the sectors is we have seen closures of leisure centres, and we have seen closures of facilities, or at least stripping back. So a lot of that then obviously impacts swimming teachers, it impacts lifeguards, it impacts the managers, all of the workforce that work within those centres or those facilities. And it's the same for the coaches that may hire spaces, the personal trainers that go into the gym. And what a lot of businesses have had to do is cut the times for the pools, especially, but having to cut sessions. And that therefore means reduced hours, there's lack of hours available, and a vast majority of the sport physical activity sector, as you all probably know, are sole traders and freelancing work. So it's really affected those people. But as part of that survey, we then followed up as a bit of a member pulse check, if you like. And a lot of the respondents came back that they were worried or anxious. And that stemmed from uncertainty about future effects of the cost of living. So a lot of people mentioned, so around 45% saying the cost of living hadn't impacted their mental health, which was, you know, again, that's less than half, which is shocking, you know, just less than half, which was shocking statistics, really. But the comments that people were saying is the way that they did manage to combat it was to keep hold of some reserves, or keep a pot of money back, or really start to plan and use their time and their money wisely. So in terms of the effects, yes, huge impact, main impact being around the uncertainty.
All the things that you've just said, thinking about those statistics, the information that you've gained from your members, how do you recommend organisations in the sector, you know, can support their workforce's mental health during this cost of living crisis?
I think, I mean, the main thing is to make sure that you've got those kind of policies and those procedures within your organisation, and that you've got support available. This is cost of living crisis or no cost of living crisis, but at the moment particularly, you know, ask yourself and sit down and look at your HR department or your people department or whoever that is. It could be yourself in this instance. Are you equipped, or do you feel comfortable enough that you've got the right policies in place? If somebody comes to you and says, I'm really struggling with X, Y, Z, have you got a step-by-step plan of what you're going to do from there? And I must say, I've done a lot of work with Sam at Mind, and he's helped us. He's been phenomenal in helping us to put in our mental health and wellbeing policy, our mental health action plans, and things like that. So first and foremost is just to make sure that you've got that support available, and anything really that you can share, like best practice. So for example, it's funny, our finance director over the last few months has turned into a bit of an internal Martin Lewis. And she just, every now and again, little nuggets that come into our internal channels, and she'll just share things, which is really, really helpful. So yeah, I kind of, she's probably going to shout at me for calling the internal Martin Lewis, but if anyone within the organisation has got tips or things that they've helped them, that, you know, themselves with, or they've come across things, we've personally got, we use Slack as an internal communications method, and we've created a Slack channel. So it's just specifically called Money Savers, And every now and again, people will put in there about free coupons or something, or discounts on such and such energy, or discounts on something else. And even though that seems really, really small, it all adds up.
Yeah.
So I think talking about it, understanding the situation that we're in, speaking to your employees and saying, yeah, this is where we're at. How does it make you feel? What support can we put in place as an organisation? We haven't got a magic wand,
yeah.
but can we combat some of those things to alleviate those pressures? So, you know, signposting to the relevant resources. We've got an employee assistance program. We use Able Futures, and also we use charities such as Mind, and others, you know, Samaritans and Shout. We kind of signpost out there to say, if you are struggling, if you need support, we're here, but also these are the professionals, these are the experts. You know, we'll do our utmost to support you as an employee of this organisation, and also in conjunction with the professionals. So
yeah, and I think it's really interesting what you say, Ben, about it's some of the small things sometimes that can just be so powerful. You know, like as you say, people providing tips over Slack. You know, your Martina, is in a female Martin Lewis. You know, providing those tips. It's just those things that I think it also enables your workforce to know, well, actually, yeah, you're thinking about me, you're trying to support me, and supporting each other. So yeah, really useful tips. Thank you.
That's fair. And just to add on to those a little bit, if I may, is we kind of run little finance webinars as well. So we brought somebody in externally, financial wellbeing webinars. And then also what I would do is encourage organisations to go and check out any funding opportunities. So this is an organisation, it's not, in turn supports your workforce, but go and have a look at Sport England's funding, for example, the Small Grants Programme, the Tackling Inequalities Fund. Anything that may be able to alleviate some of those pressures helps you as a business, but also obviously helps your employees as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, great advice. Great, thanks, Ben. So following, I guess, on from that, with all those great ideas and great tips, what have been the challenges that you've found to support your staff's mental health this time?
Very difficult question, Karen, I'll be honest, because it's a difficult topic, talking about money problems or mental health problems can be quite tricky for some people, and I can completely understand that. I completely get that. So the challenge is for us as an organisation is just making sure that we've got enough, or that we can try and provide a holistic approach, or as much as possible. Again, I think I mentioned it earlier on that there is no magic wand. We cannot support the cost of living crisis at the moment. We cannot change some of those things, but if we can alleviate some of those pressures using, talking through some of the issues, or talking through how we can save money on certain bits and bobs, that's kind of where we're at. So those are the challenges, but what we do in that respect is try to put out surveys. We put out pulse checkers. It can be anonymous, just to say, okay, we get it, we understand it, we understand it's very difficult at the moment. Is there anything that we can do as an organisation to try and alleviate some of those pressures? Again, no magic wand. We can't give everyone, salary raises and all the rest of it. But is there anything else that we can do? Is there anything else within our remit where we can offer discounts, for example, in certain areas, or things like that?
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because we talk about stigma with mental health, people feeling reluctant to talk about their mental health because of either stigma within society or their own self-stigma. But there is a stigma around talking about money, isn't there? And, I think all the things that you talked about recommending organisations to do, such as, having those top tips, your finance manager director talking about it, once you start opening up those conversations, it enables people to then start thinking, actually, it's okay to talk about it, and there is some support out there. So yeah, I can see that as a challenge, but also with some of the things you've suggested can actually help to support that and alleviate that. So brilliant.
Yeah.
So I guess finally, thinking about all the things that you've talked about, what has been the impact of the support you have provided so far that kind of follows on from what we've been talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think internally within the organisation, we've tried to create that openness, have that open relationship. People feel more inclined or more supported to be able to open up and to be able to talk about it. I mean, we've got a wellbeing committee at CIMSPA. So we've got wellbeing champions, we've got mental health first aiders, and also the employee assistance program I mentioned earlier on. But the impact of having those conversations, of putting it you know, front and center of people's mind, that the support is there, should you need it. I think it eases the pressure. I think it, you know, as you know better than me, Karen, raising the awareness and having those places and signposting to those areas, it means people feel supported, you feel more valued. And when you feel supported, you are getting that support and you are more valued. We can start to try and see the positives and build from there, really. So what we have found is that, and it doesn't happen overnight, this isn't something that happens, it's something that you have to work on and build. But when we talk about organizational culture, this is something that if you haven't got it in place now, for future reference as well, we mentioned earlier about we don't know what the future brings, and it's that is quite off-putting and be quite distracting. Let's embed it into the culture. Let's get talking about it. You're not alone. You're not the only person, and there will be other people within the organisation that are feeling this way. They may just not have faced it yet, and we've seen that more people are forthcoming.
Okay, so thank you to Ben for that. Following on, I think, from all that we've heard about the resources that Beckett's talked about to support your workplace, and just listening to Ben about some of the tips there and the challenges, I'm really pleased now to introduce Emma Swan. So Emma is Supporter Relations Reflective Practice Supervisor with Mind, and I'll let Emma explain briefly about her role. So lovely to introduce Emma to you, and I think we're going to stop sharing our screen so that we can just, oh dear, you just got both of us now. So Emma, if you want to just introduce yourself a bit about your role as well, that'd be great.
Hi, yeah, thank you. So I work in a supporter care team, so we deal with a lot of the incoming calls on things like donations and fundraising, and generally just our supporter inquiries. So my role is just to support our team really around kind of reflective practice, which ultimately broken down just means thinking about what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it. And that allows us to really think about what we're doing well, what could be improved. And it's really just about driving that organisational excellence. It's making sure that our staff are okay, that they know that they can be confident in what they're doing, but also there's an element of that wellbeing check-in as well, just to make sure that, you know, there's not something in their role that is holding them back, either with their personal wellbeing or even in their role.
Fabulous, thank you, and thanks for describing it, especially if it's such a long job title as well. So bearing in mind everything that we've heard about the Safe and Beckett around the support, and the challenges that Ben spoke about in the film, I suppose my first question to you is really, how can we spot the signs that someone may be feeling low or distressed in our team?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of, sometimes people want a bit of a magic wand answer, is we think there's a one size fits all, and I think the number one tip I give people is kind of thinking about that person, that individualization is, of course, there are really obvious signs if somebody is externalized that they are stressed, or if they are saying the clear words like I feel really low or I feel sad, and sometimes that even sometimes can be ignored, but we're thinking about actually what is this person indicating to me based on what I know about them. That could be, have they changed in presentation? Someone who's usually really bubbly, have they become quite quiet or withdrawn? Somebody who, you know, would never miss a work social suddenly is not coming out as much. Or maybe it's the other side of it, where actually somebody who's usually quite quiet is perhaps becoming really, really animated. If we think about what we might see as hyperactivity, perhaps might be actually a presentation for some that they've escalated to a different tolerance level. The way I try and think about it really is this: what's happening for that person? If somebody's presenting what we would perhaps see as a more negative behaviour, perhaps being more aggressive, more short-tempered, snappy, perhaps words we see as quite disappointing behaviour in the workplace, it's actually shifting to a conversation of going, what's happening for that person, and not thinking what's wrong with them. And the purpose of this is, okay, if somebody is presenting in a certain way, I like to look at it as what I say curious compassion is. I want to understand, where is this person at? Is it something that's workplace related, or perhaps maybe are they feeling unwell? And it just won't be the same for everybody. Some people, when they're quiet, that's representing being studious. For some, quiet means they've spiraled into a lot of negative thinking, or they can't focus. So it's really thinking, what do I know about this person already? What is the context of them and their behaviour, and how has that changed? And obviously there will be some signs that are a lot clearer, things like presenting much more tearful, or, as I say, being aggressive. So it's just sometimes thinking about, okay, if I'm not sure, maybe could I just ask, actually, could I just safely, gently approach that person in a way where I can identify that something has changed with them?
Yeah, but I love that. I just wrote that down, curious compassion. And I think, that's absolutely key. And I think often, what you're saying is you may notice those changes in somebody, as you say, that different behaviour. And we can sometimes feel unsure about asking someone if they're okay, if they seem agitated, low, or distressed. Or sometimes we're worried, I think, if it's someone, we won't know what to do with the information that they give us. So how can we support someone in that situation?
Yeah, I think they're really valid points. It's something that sometimes we don't talk about enough, is actually for the person who might be seemingly okay, but wants to approach the person who they're not sure is okay. We all have our own worries anyway. And I actually talk a lot with people about, know where you are first. That's really important. It's really valid to reflect on, okay, am I nervous about this conversation? If so, what do I need to do to feel calmer? Maybe I make sure that if I'm going to approach that person, I do it in a time and a manner that makes me feel comfortable. But also thinking, okay, where is this person at? What do they need? And it's not about what you want to give them or fix or do. It's what support do they need in that moment. And so that might be thinking, okay, do I have capacity to deal with what they might bring me? If I don't, do I know where to help them get that information? I think Ben mentioned earlier about the idea of things like employee assistance programs, and we'll touch on signposting a bit later, but this idea that we need to first check ourselves. Are we in the right place to have this conversation? Are we coming from a place of frustration, or is it from that curiosity and that compassion for that person? So timing and location are important. We want to be sensitive to, is that person about to go into a meeting, or are they about to go deliver a class? Are they about to go in and work with young people? We don't want to maybe trigger that space for them in that moment. What we might just do is check in with them in a light touch way, but try to think, okay, where are they going to have that headspace for themselves to potentially delve into a more sensitive conversation? And it's also, do you have the time for it? Because what you don't want to do is say, a bit worried about your mate, how you getting on, things seem a little bit like maybe work's a bit tough at the moment, or whatever it is you say to start that conversation. If you know you've only got 3 minutes to have that conversation, then maybe that's not thinking about, does this person get their needs met? What you're thinking of is, I just want to do the right thing, but have I chosen the right moment? So it's thinking about, how do we support and not fix, and thinking about what do they need and how am I going to be a part of that. And I talk with my team a lot about being a cog, is you're not responsible for everything. Your one question, your one little signpost, or that one bit of validation, even if you can't give anything to help them, sometimes the fact that you've just observed and cared and shown that validation of what they are experiencing is the small cog that feeds into that bigger system of them getting the help that they need when they're ready for it. And sometimes what happens is we want to take them from a space and get them to the good space, so they're not ready for that, or maybe they're not even aware they'd felt the way they were because they're in that coping space of just get through each day. So it's not about feeling what they feel or being in the space that they are. It's also just not about trying to make them be in the space you want them to be. So just being conscious of, where am I at, what that brings that person, and therefore how can I just create some safe distance to be compassionate for them, with that sensitivity of, what's my remit here? What do I need to do? Okay, do you know what? I just need to validate this person's feelings and be in the space where maybe you ask them what they need moving forward.
Brilliant, fantastic advice. And I think, you know, I love that thing about being a cog, and you know, it's not for us to try and fix something as well. So yeah, thank you, really useful. And I guess following on from that is, we've had that conversation with them, and we have made that time, and we know we can have that time with them. So if we then, with that conversation, realise that they do need support, what would I do then? You know, how do I go about that?
I think, again, it comes back to what support are they after. So the first thing is understanding and really listening. And I always talk about listening to hear. Like, listening is about, where is that person? What are they trying to say? And in that kind of support moment, you might reflect back and just double check you've really understood what they meant, because that allows you to then think about, okay, if they're ready for signposting, if they want it, you might categorically ask them and say, do you want information of where you might be able to get help? Because they might just be like, no, I'm overwhelmed. Or they might be like, I really would, and I don't know where to start. Like Beckett said earlier, sometimes there's so much information, you're just like, where do I start? And so the easiest thing is to just not connect. So I generally tend to talk to people about having a couple of services you're confident to say about. So for example, we do have the Mind Info line. You might know the Samaritans number because it's only 6 digits. It's easy to reel off, and it's just that starting point. So thinking about these numbers that are 24-hour accessible, or thinking about information-based services, it's the capacity to know, okay, if somebody brings something to me, I might not have the answers to help them with the actual need or problem, but I might have some quick fix organisations that I know do have the answers, or at least can get someone in the right direction. And that's the very general element of it. But the other thing is things like wellbeing action plans. So thinking about, actually, can we proactively in an organisation get people to reflect in a wellbeing action plan, okay, what are my warning signs? How would I know if I don't feel well? What types of things make that more difficult for me? Because everybody is so different, and what causes stress for some will be easy for others, and vice versa. So when we proactively get people to think about where they're at and how they're feeling, we can also then ask the questions of, how would I know? How would you like me to approach you? So when we do a wellbeing action plan, that kind of takes away some of that pressure. And it, in some organisations, the practice would be that they share the things in their wellbeing action plan that they're comfortable to share. So for example, it might be that a manager is given a certain piece of information, a more detailed element, but a colleague is perhaps just told, look, do you know what, if I'm ever not feeling right, or if I don't feel this, I might do this. You know, if you see my headphones in, that just means I need some disconnect time. But by putting that reflection space to that person, you're helping them have some insight, and also then helping the organisation know how to approach that person. For some, that might be send me an email. For some, that might be so anxiety triggering for them to get an email because of their own feelings. For others, it might be ask me if I want to go get a coffee. And that kind of space also helps empowerment, because we're starting to give people the choice of how they want their well-being to be managed. Employee assistance programs are really useful, and also supervision. So thinking about signposting people to, you know, the right management lead in the organisation. When we talk about asking people to bring themselves forward, we also need to remember that we need safety and containment, because not all colleagues have the capacity, the skill, or the desire to want to be exposed to that. And so one thing I do talk about is, how are you going to signpost generically for those who aren't ready to speak? So I talk a lot about using QR codes, whether that's sticking them on the back of toilet doors, whether that's putting them in public spaces. So for example, if someone's playing on their phone, actually what they might be doing is just zooming in on a QR code that's on a table, and actually we don't even realise that they're subtly and privately able to access that information. It's about that pace that they're ready for. And the last thing is just, you know, if you can't influence everything and make something better for somebody, what's just that one small step you can do? Is it validation? What's the feeling that you want someone to have when they walk away from that conversation with you? You know, it might be validation, it might be compassion, it might be confidence that actually you know where to get them to. So it's taking pressure off yourself to do everything and just thinking, what's one small thing I can do to help?
Fabulous. Thank you so much. That's been so helpful. And I think, you know, just little nuggets that all come out of that. It's, as you say, it's the small things and wellness action plans. And it's something that we as a team use a lot and share with the team. And as you say, it's that dual responsibility, but it's also, you know, it might be those small things. What do you want your line manager to do if you are experiencing distress or low mood or whatever it is, and knowing what those signs are. So yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emma. That's been really, really helpful. And just to say to everybody, we're going to be sharing a sort of PDF with all the information that that Emma's just spoken about. So you'll be able to have access to that. We'll also be sharing a cost of living booklet, which will also link into that. So moving on, I think we're just going to now move on to some questions. And so I'm now just going to invite my other panelists to join me, hopefully, if tech works. So really just want to see if there are any questions that anybody has. I'm going to check in the Q&A. Yeah, so actually I'm going to, is everyone back? I think we're fabulous. Okay, so one of the first questions actually I'm going to ask actually to Emma. So the question is, how do you support a colleague who has said that they are struggling with severe anxiety but won't accept any help or don't know what support they need?
So I think the first thing is actually they don't want the help right now. So one thing we wouldn't do is just channel loads of direction at them, because I think what we'd be looking at is that might make them more resistant. When somebody is anxious, it's also not for us to start diving into why they're anxious, because we don't have the skills necessarily to go into that more therapeutic lens. So something we talk about, and it's really interesting to look at, is the cycle of change. I think it's like Prochaska and Dementi, it's their theory. And if you just Google cycle of change, it's a really nice visual about where people are at, and the understanding that for that person, they're perhaps in what we call pre-contemplation or contemplation. Maybe they know there's a problem, but they're not ready yet to take that big action step. They're still testing the waters. They're still understanding what that anxiety means to them. And that's what I was saying earlier about we might want someone to be over here, but they're not ready for that yet. So it's, I suppose, that step back to think, okay, why do I need them to be there? What's the reasoning for me? What's that bringing up in my space? But also, what can I do for them instead? Okay, well, that could be really loose signposting in a general platform where you know they'd see it. For example, you might choose to at periodic intervals put helplines in a group chat. You might make sure you've got better signs around the office of what your employee assistance program channels are, signposting to the wonderful website Beckett's just spoken about and shown us, because it has all those resources that have the self-help on it. And ultimately, it's reminding people that, okay, when you're ready, you know, reach out, because we want people to do it at their own pace. That makes it safer for them. And it's also just checking in that it's okay to feel frustrated, as long as you don't then externalize it back to that person, because there could be so many reasons why they're not ready to go there. They might have had previous negative experiences. Perhaps they've reached out to a counsellor before and they were given a blaming attitude. There's all these things that come into it. So checking yourself, looking at that really external loose signposting can help, and just showing that, you know, if and when you're ready, you know, come back to me and I'd be happy to help.
Fabulous, thank you. Great advice. I'm just going to check. I don't think there's anything. So what we'll do, if you have got any questions, please do still put those in the chat. And what we'll do is in the information that we now send out post-webinar, we'll include any answers to anything that now goes into that chat. So really just to finish off, firstly, I just want to say a huge thank you to our speakers, but also just to revisit what were our learning outcomes. And hopefully you've actually, we've achieved these, hopefully to some extent anyway, so that I hope now you do have an increased awareness of the support that is available to you and your people around mental health. We've heard a lot from all of our speakers about what different types of support there is. We also hope we've improved the knowledge of where you can signpost people, so really valuable information there, how you access all that information around that sort of link between mental health and money, and share that, and really just, I suppose overall, you know how you can start to support your workplace with their mental well-being in this cost of living situation, but also generally with people's so an absolutely huge thank you to all of our speakers today. It's just been really helpful, really valuable. So, you know, thank you, Beckett, thank you, Emma, and thank you to Ben, who I met with last week.